Mr. Low Thia Khiang.
Speaker, sir, the vision of Global Asia Singapore. This budget catches my attention for several reasons. But one thing that really jumps up at me was when the Minister for Finance said that, quote, "We must anchor Singapore as a global Asia node of technology, innovation, and enterprise. Welcome investments, talent, and ideas to Singapore, and be bold in venturing out into new markets," unquote. Sir, I believe that the government has accurately identified the major international shifts that will change the world for our children. These are the shifting of global economic weight to Asia and the emergence of new technologies. I interpret this interesting phrase, Global Asia, as positioning Singapore to catch the growth in Asia with a global outlook. The conversion of these two shifts, namely the shifting of global economic weight to Asia and the emergence of new technologies, in which the fourth industrial revolution is taking place in the region, stretching from South Asia to Northeast Asia through Southeast Asia. For the first time in modern history, the Asian economies combined is developing more robustly than Western economies. The Asian engine is driving the global economy and transforming Asia from being a volatile region into a dynamic global center. At the heart of Global Asia is China. The opening of China to global capitalism by Deng Xiaoping also opens up the minds of the Chinese people to the world. Many overseas Chinese talents return from the developed countries of the West to China, bringing with them the knowledge and culture to advance China's science and technology. The political will to succeed and the hunger of the Chinese people to learn and live better lives fueled rapid economic development. China is fast becoming an economic and military superpower. Singapore has thrived in the past 50 years by making ourselves useful to global capitalism, especially by correctly identifying future trends before others do. We make ourselves useful to American-led capitalism in Southeast Asia and East Asia during the Cold War, and in the process help to transform ASEAN from a political grouping into an aspiring economic community. In the last 3 decades, Singapore correctly predicted the rise of China and was one of the first countries to share the know-how of economic development with China. We had reaped a lot of benefits from this first mover advantage. But I'm afraid this advantage is now irrelevant. China is leading the region to become the center of global capitalism. Global Asia also means competitive measures, pressures, and realities, especially when the value chain of global production in the region diversifies, even as the value chain reorient center on China. China's One Belt, One Road initiative expresses this, with the many lines of economic flow being reimagined and reorganized as starting from China and extending in different directions, westwards, southwards, and northwards. We have to make ourselves useful again in this new Asian capitalism centered on China by fundamentally transforming our economy. As a small city-state nation, this also means transforming our culture and human capital, as well as our diplomatic relationships with the economic powers and interpersonal friendships between national leaders and citizens. In the past 50 years, Singaporeans' ability to speak English well has contributed to fostering our relationships with Western countries at the center of global capitalism in the region. We have a new challenge today. There is a unique ethnic connection between Chinese Singaporeans and the Chinese in China due to ancestral and linguistic ties. But many people have observed that this kinship advantage is fading fast as China modernizes. I agree with Li Yisheng, member for East Coast GRC, that the learning of Mandarin should be part of the overall strategy of anchoring Singapore as a global Asia node, as it will help us to connect to the 1.3 billion Chinese. I would even go further to argue we should also learn our dialects as well. In China, speaking Mandarin, 普通话, is just the official language in official dealing. If one would like to connect better to the Chinese, not just rationally, but also affectionately, the language to use is local dialect. That said, we must also bear in mind that Singapore is first and foremost a multiracial and multilingual society. What does the rise of China as an economic and political superpower mean for a small state such as Singapore? My view is that Singapore is politically at heart a Southeast Asian nation, defined by commercial trade winds, tropical hospitality, openness of the sea, and the diversity of cultures. I believe that the ethnic politics and international frictions in our region will subside in time, and ASEAN will soon become a more integrated community to protect our own interests against external dominance. As a Chinese-educated Singaporean, I am delighted to see Chinese being used in many countries today, especially in places where they see the value of Chinese tourists and investment dollars. The Chinese language is today one of the most popular languages being learned by people all over the world. Chinese culture is fast becoming less a scholarly curiosity, but more a tool of soft power today. This has helped perhaps some Chinese-educated Singaporeans feel that they are finally free of the feeling of inferiority. They are excited that the so-called sick man of Asia has now been fully awakened with the full force of 5,000 years of rich Chinese culture. However, sir, many overseas Chinese are also concerned about the intention of China, especially under one-party rule and as a superpower, in her policy and attitude towards weaker states. Will China seek to turn the tables on its experience of European imperialism and become an imperialist power itself? This is not far-fetched if we consider Japan did just that in the first half of the 20th century. Will China revive its old tributary empire and use sharp power to compel small states to submit to its will and pay the equivalent of tribute today? How China behaves will have serious implications on small states in the region, like Singapore, in the near future. I am personally wary of the political ambitions of China as a global Asia superpower. I'm worried that Singapore, if we are not careful, and if we fail in our economic strategy to become a global Asia node, will become the pawn on the chessboard of great power games in Southeast Asia. Mr. Speaker, sir, I fully agree with the Minister for Finance that we must anchor Singapore as a global Asia node of technology, innovation, and enterprise. There is a need to transform the Singapore industrial era mindset and culture to make us relevant and useful to the future economy and contribute to the economic dynamism of the region. But besides focusing on the economic opportunities, we should also have the new political scenario in mind while anchoring Singapore as a global Asian node. It is important that we see the political economy of the major shift instead of just the economic challenges and opportunities. I appreciate the government's vision statements and the articulation of how Singapore should strategically position itself in the new era. This is a forward-looking budget to anchor Singapore firmly in the future and for the future. Sir, the unfortunate thing about this budget is that it is looking forward too hastily for future revenue stream by prematurely announcing the GST hike. This has become an unnecessary distraction from the vision articulated in this budget, and as a real distraction, causing the government to lose its focus in getting buy-in for the vision, because it has to explain the future GST hike instead. Do not let this opportunity to lead Singapore with this vision go to waste. Thank you.